2007, I was preparing for my second deployment to Iraq, and this deployment was actually going to be a big one. It was going to be 15 months. We had a commander at the time. He really wanted to maximize our output and our productivity as a staff, so he instituted a policy that he just referred to as 15, 7, and 2. And what that means is we were expected to work for 15 hours a day, sleep for 7 hours, and then have 2 hours for just personal time, go into the gym, writing letters home, things like that. And the crazy thing was about this is it actually worked for the first 2 or 3 months. Our numbers were through the roof. It was astronomical, the amount of productivity that we were able to accomplish as a staff. The problem was after about 3 or 4 months, you start seeing some cracks in the way we were doing things. People who were normally very attention to detail oriented were starting to miss little things, letting little easy things slide by. Other people who were normally very encouraging and just positive type people found themselves being very short and just very negative in general. Bottom line is, over the next few months as it continued to develop, we lost a lot of unit cohesion and unity within the organization. What our commander failed to recognize is the value of discretionary time. Don't get me wrong, work time is very important, but it's important that we always reserve some discretionary times for ourselves. And what discretionary time really is, it's that time that we set aside for ourselves that we can invest in our passions, in the things that are important to us, our priorities. Discretionary time is that time that we set aside, that we invest in the things that mean the most to us. It's our passions, our priorities, things like our family, ourselves. It's really important that we always set time aside. Just like work time is important, it's important that we set discretionary time aside for ourselves as well. Diminishing discretionary time is a growing trend that we're seeing in the United States. If you go back to 1967, the average work year for an individual was about 1,700 hours a year. Fast forward about 3 decades to 2000, and that number has increased to over 2,000. So we're working a lot more now than we have ever worked in the past. In addition to that, technology, which most people tend to think is something that helps us to find more discretionary time, actually works against us. In 1967, experts testified in front of Congress that in a matter of a few decades, by 1985, the average work week was going to dropped to about 30 hours a week, and that was based on technological advancements at the time. Well, 1985 came and went, and I don't know about you, I personally have never worked a 30-hour work week. I work harder now, we as a society work harder now than we ever have in the past. The average work week for Americans is actually about 47 hours a week right now. The Bible actually has a lot to say about our discretionary time and how we invest our time. We have a zero-sum balance with our time. Time is a resource. And what that means is that in order to invest more time in one area, you have to take time away from another area. And Moses even recognized this. That's why he writes in Psalm 90:12, "Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom." See, Moses understood that our time was a precious and finite resource, and that it needed to be guarded and protected at all costs. There's no shortage of external factors that will steal your time if you let it. And that's exactly Paul's point in Ephesians. In Ephesians 5:15 and 16, he writes, "Be careful then that how you live, not as unwise, but wise, making the best use of your time because the days are evil." What Paul is warning us is if we're not careful, if we're not intentional with our time, then the things of the world will steal that time away from us and take that time from us. There are actually 4 areas in your life that I would encourage you trying to invest more of your discretionary time. The first is actually just personal time. Whether it's gardening, whether it's taking a walk, meditating, fishing, playing around the golf, whatever your thing is, I encourage you to invest some of your time in that. Those things help us to recharge our batteries, kind of re-energize ourselves, and kind of just help us regain our focus as we move throughout the rest of our days. Charles Francis Adams was the son of President John Quincy Adams. He had a son named Brooks. Well, Charles was known as kind of a straight-laced, hard-working, no-nonsense kind of guy. He really didn't spend a lot of personal time doing other things. But one day in one of his journal entries, he actually wrote, spent the entire day fishing with my son. A day wasted. That same day, Brooks actually put in his diary, I spent the whole day fishing with my dad. Best day of my life. So whether it's time with your spouse, time with your children, or even time with your parents, your brothers, your sisters, never discount the value of family time. It's a really important thing that we should be investing in. The third thing is discretionary time with your friends. I actually have a group of guys that I meet with for breakfast every Friday morning. And we sit down over some grits and eggs and a cup of coffee. We solve all of the world's problems. It's really cool. We laugh, we joke, we check in on each other. It's just a great time. Recently, I went through a period of time where I couldn't be there on Fridays. And over the course of a few weeks, it was amazing how disconnected I felt from this group. And then when I was finally able to get back with them, it just re-energized me in a way to be able to connect with those long-term friends and just talk to them and hang out with them and see how their life's doing as well. So the fourth area that I would encourage you to invest some of your discretionary time is your time with God. That's the most important thing that we do every single day. But it's ironic that when our days get hectic and busy, that's usually the first thing that we kind of push to the side. But the speed at which we often find ourselves living our lives and running the race does not yield devotion to God often. David actually wrote in Psalm 46:10, to be still and know that I am God. If we hope to have any growth in our relationship with God, we have to invest in that relationship, which means spending time worshiping, communicating, and communing with God on a regular basis. So there are some very specific ways of how you can actually take back some of your discretionary time right now. Hopefully, after this, you're going to sit down with your group and you're going to talk through a lot of those. But let me just share 3 areas and 3 things that I do in my life that have personally helped me. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are just things, again, that have helped me as I try to take back some of my discretionary time. The first one is expect the unexpected. Every day when I wake up and as I start my day, the first thing I really do is I sit down and I kind of plan out my day. I think through all the meetings I have. I think through the conversations I need to have with different people and the things I need to get done. So 2 things I always try to do during this time. One is I actually plan out discretionary time. I know how easy it is to lose that time. So when I'm thinking through my day, I actually, as crazy as it sounds, I actually try to plan out that discretionary time. And the second thing I try to do is I try to unplug from all the distractions of the world. And this is a big one for me. The average American spends about 20 to 30 hours a week watching TV. They spend another 15 to 20 hours surfing their phones, going through social media. So for me, taking my phone, setting it down, turning the TV off, spending time with either my wife or for myself or with our family, whatever that happens to be, or with God, take time to unplug each day. So, and the third thing that I find helps me is spending time pruning my garden. And what I mean by that is we have a culture right now of FOMO. It's fear of missing out. We always feel like something's going on over here, so I need to be a part of it. Or something's going on over here, I definitely don't want to miss out on that. So we end up investing a lot of time doing things that probably really aren't that important to us. So my encouragement here is don't overcommit to activities. Learn to say no. Learn to be okay with the space around you. So as you go through your groups and you're talking about how you can create more discretionary time, remember, life was meant to be a marathon, not a sprint. As you go through this next week, I just encourage you to try to find more discretionary time in your life. And not just find discretionary time, but invest that time wisely. Invest it in yourself, invest it in your family, invest it in your friends, but most importantly, invest it in God. I'm looking forward to hearing all about it, and have a great week.